Today we are continuing with chapter number 5, review of C++, session 5, and this is your last session. So let's start with today's session with types of functions. In functions there are of 5 types. First one is functions with no arguments and no return values. So the syntax for this function is this. So in this type of function, the first function calls the second function. As we are not passing any arguments to the second function performs its calculations, but it does not return any value to the first function. See here in the function 1, it will call the second function, but it does not passing any arguments to the function 2. After performing the calculations, function 2 does not return any values to the first function. That is called as functions with no arguments and no return values. Next type is functions with arguments and no return values. Functions with arguments means what? Function 1 will pass some arguments to the function 2. So here functions with arguments and no return values means in this type of function, the first function will call the second function by passing some arguments. After calling the function, the second function performs its calculations, but it does not return any value to the function 1. This is called as functions with arguments and no return values. Next type of function is functions with no arguments and with return values. Means function 1 does not pass any arguments to the second function, but function 2 returns value to the first function, that is in this type of function, first function calls the second function, but it does not pass any arguments to the function 2. The function 2 performs its calculations and sends the value back to the function 1 with the return statement. See here, y, the variable y is receiving the value from the function 2. So this is called as function with no arguments and with return values. Next type of function is functions with arguments and with return values. So in this type of function, the first function calls the second function . In this type of function, the first function calls the second function by passing some arguments, and after performing the operations in function 2, the function 2 sends back the result to the function 1 using return statement. This is called as functions with arguments and with return values. Next type is recursive functions. So what are recursive functions? The functions which calls itself is called as recursive function. See here, function see here, this function is calling itself again and again is called as recursive function. So this is about the types of functions. So next type is call by value. What is the meaning of call by value? With a simple program, we can understand this concept. So using this swapping of two numbers program, we can understand the concept call by value. So what is this program? So this program is to swap two numbers. So ash include iostream.h. So inside the void main, I am declaring the variables. So these variables are called as local variables, as these variables can be used only within this function. So I can call it as local variables. So next, void swap int a comma int b. What is this? This is nothing but function declaration. Next, cout, enter the values of x and y. So using the standard input device, the user is going to enter the values of x and y here. After accepting, we are calling the function here. What is the function name? The name of the function is swap. Swap x comma y. So these variables are called as actual parameters, or we can call it as actual arguments. Void swap int a comma int b. So int temp variable is declared here. So temp is equal to a. For example, if the value of x is 10 and value of y is 20 here before swapping, so temp is a temporary variable here. So I am passing the value of a to the variable called temp. So now the value of temp becomes 10. Next, A is equal to B. So here what I am doing, I am initializing the value of B to the variable A. A becomes now 20. Next, B is equal to temp. So what is the value of temp? The value of temp is 10 here. So the value 10 is initialized to the variable B. B is equal to 10. So see out, x is equal to, the value of x becomes A. So A contains 20, the value of y becomes 10. So this is called as swapping of two numbers. So what is call by value? So call by value is nothing but in this type of passing the parameters to a function. So the function copies the exact value from the actual parameters to the formal parameters. So the value of x and y, that is 10 and 20, is copied to the formal parameters a and b respectively. So this method is called as call by value. Next type is call by reference. Yes, this is our call by reference concept. So using the same program, we can understand the concept call by reference. So here what is a small change we have to do means void swap. Here in this we are referring to the actual parameters. So that is see here in the function declaration what we have done here, void swap int ampersand a comma int ampersand b. Next, in the function call, as usual we are passing the values x and y here. In call by value what we are doing, the values of actual parameters are copied to the formal parameters, but in call by reference we are referring to the actual parameters by the formal parameters. That is, we are referring to the actual parameters. So that is called as call by reference. I hope you people have understood what is call by value and call by reference. Next is passing default arguments to the function. Yes, passing default arguments to the function, which means default means in this type of passing arguments in the function declaration itself we have declared some variables to the default value, but while calling the function it is not necessary to pass the values again. So that is called as passing default arguments to the function. See in this example, float is the data type of the function name called interest, and the parameters are float amount, int type, float rate is equal to 0.5. So this is our default argument. So this is our default argument. So while calling the function, SI is equal to interest 5000 comma 5. But we are not passing the third parameter here. Why? Because third parameter is our default argument. So by default it will take the value 0.5 here. So that is called as passing default arguments to the function. Next is passing constant arguments. Passing constant arguments. So see here, in C++ we can declare some arguments as constants. So if we declare the variable as constant, so that the compiler cannot modify the value of the variables in the program. So see in this example, int is the data type of the function name total. So const. So const is the keyword, int x and const int y. So passing constant arguments means in C++ we can declare some arguments as constant, so that the compiler cannot modify the value of the variable. See the example, int total, the name of the function is total, the variables x and y are declared as constant arguments. So this is about passing constant arguments. And the next type is passing arrays to the function. Passing arrays to the function. That is, here we can pass an array to a function. So here we are referring the first address of the first element in an array. So that using that address we can access the other elements in an array. So this is about passing arrays to the function. Next is passing structures. So here we can pass structures to the function by call by value method. The function will return the structure after processing it. So this is about passing arrays to the function as well as passing structures to the function. Next topic is structures. So what are structures? A structure is a collection of variables of same type, or it may be of different types. So how to define a structure? So this is how we can define a structure. Defining a structure starts with the keyword struct followed by the name and the pieces of data which make up the structure is called as data members. So these are called as the structure members. These are called as structure members. They are grouped and placed in a common place, that is within open braces and close braces. So at the end it should terminate with a semicolon to indicate that it is the end of the structure definition. So this is about defining a structure. So defining structure does not create any memory space. So but it tells the compiler that these are the variables and how many memory space it has to set aside for these variables. So an example for this is struct student int register number char name 20 char class of char combination of 4. Next, float. So here structure name is student. So the structure members are int register number, char name of 20, char class of 4, char combination of 4 and float fees. And we are terminating with the semicolon. So how will be the memory location of the structure? The memory location of the structure would be register number. So integer, it's of 2 bytes. Name. So the size of char is 1. So 1 into 20 is 20 bytes. Next, class 4 bytes. Char combination 4 bytes. Then float fees. So the size of float is 4 bytes. So total 34 bytes of space is reserved in the memory location for these variables. So we cannot use a structure until we declare a structure variable. So how to declare the structure variable? The syntax for structure variable is struct structure name variable name. So how to define a structure? Struct structure name variable name. So let us define a variable of type student. So that is struct structure name new student. So this is how to define a structure and to declare a structure variable. Next, so after defining and declaring a structure, how to access the members of the structure? So we cannot directly refer to the members of the structure. So for that we should follow some rules. So what we have to do? We have to use the syntax structure variable name, structure variable name dot member name. So if I want to access the member name of the new student, then what I have to do? I have to use the syntax structure variable name dot member name. So here what is the structure variable name? The structure variable name is new student. new student dot, what is the member name? The name of the member is name. So dot name. So this is how I can access the members of the structure. So this is about this chapter. So it completes chapter number 5, that is review of C++. Thank you.